Power Up with NSA North Texas, a show about finding, hearing, and maximizing valuable insights from some of the world's leading business and lifestyle speakers. Each week, international keynote speaker and National Speakers Association North Texas chapter president Betti sits down with some of the most exciting speakers this side of the globe to hear from these subject matter experts what's making a difference in business today and learn all there is to know about people, profits, and productivity in business from some of the world's best motivators. This is Power Up with NSA North Texas. And now, here's your host, Betti.
Hi everyone, I'm Betti, President of NSA North Texas, and I want to welcome you to our NSA North Texas show. The NSA National Speakers Association is the premier organization for professional speakers. Our members reach audiences as thought leaders, authors, consultants, coaches, trainers, speakers, educators, humorists, and we do it every day. This show is going to give you an idea of an opportunity to know what the cutting edge topics are, what the topics are that our clients and our meeting planners and event planners are seeking, what issues are important, what messages need to get out there. And you're going to hear about this from our own subject matter experts, our professional members at NSA North Texas. Today, I am so excited to have Randy Pennington. This is a big deal, guys. Randy is one of our top premier speakers within NSA North Texas. He's an award-winning author, strategic advisor, and Hall of Fame speaker, which is pretty much the best you can get. He has been recognized as one of the top 30 global gurus in organizational culture, and his ideas have been featured in Fast Company, HR Magazine, Entrepreneur, Forbes. He's a contributor at Huffington Post, and recently, he is currently a contributor for CIO.com, a leading global resource for technology leaders. Randy's books, Results Rule, Make Change Work, have received Best Books Award from USA Book News. And Ross Perot himself said that Randy's book, On My Honor, I Will, cracked the code for great leadership, which we're going to hear a lot about later. Today, the topic is Built to Flourish. Think about this. I've got some questions for you I want you to think about as you're listening to this. Are you prepared for the seismic shifts that are redefining business, communities, and individual lives today? Will you be relevant in a world transformed by rapid change, technological advances, and globalization? These are good questions. Can your organization become the kind of place that attracts and retains the talent you need to meet your customers' demands and stay ahead of the competition? And will working in silos prevent your team from reaching its full potential? These are just a few of the challenges that Randy Pennington is going to talk to us about today that actually help leaders and organizations in all types of industries. Today, you're going to learn, so get ready, the 3 biggest challenges facing every organization in every industry today. In addition, why this type of employee and leader what is the type of employer and leader you need to be different in the future? How can you anticipate and quickly adapt to change so that you and your business will not be disrupted and relegated to irrelevance? And finally, how to build a culture that can flourish in a future full of uncertainty and change. So, are you ready to answer some of those questions? I'm ready to hear Mr. Randy. Okay, Randy, thank you for being on our show today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I'm excited.
Are you excited?
Yeah, and I'm also scared now that I have to answer all those questions.
All those questions. I know. It's a big plate here. Okay, so let's start about the challenges today. You said that there are 3 types of challenges for organizations today. What are those? What's going on?
Absolutely. Well, the number one thing that everyone is concerned about is, first off, how do you deliver results today? The competition is better now than ever before. Mm-hmm. Your competition is basically about as good as you are. I don't care what type of business that you're in. So keeping the execution up today is one challenge. But it's not just that, because the second challenge really comes down to talent. And one of the things that CEOs are telling us right now is that they can't find the right kind of people and the right skills of people to help them grow their business. It's the lack of talent that prevents us from being able to expand. So that really comes down to, 1, what's the culture that attracts them? And 2, we have a skills deficit, especially in some of the blue collar and technology fields,
Yes.
both, that are going on, that are driving jobs right now. So the talent piece is the second piece. The third piece is, what's the future look like? What do you need to be going forward in order to stay relevant and remain relevant? So if you think about, I don't know if you remember the old TV show Wagon Train.
I'm too young for that.
Yeah,
but
you probably
I
are.
do. No, I do.
But I
do.
remember watching it with my father. And so the job of the wagon train was really the wagon master kept the train going,
Right.
which is kind of what a manager does today, is he keeps the train going. But then they had these people that call the scouts. And the job of the scouts were to ride out over the horizon and find out two things. Where's the water? Where are the hostiles?
It's true. That's true.
And so one of the challenges for organizations today is they know what's coming at the horizon. It's what's over the horizon that really causes us a great deal of concern because it's coming so fast.
I love that analogy. Wow.
Good.
I'm even thinking the music in my head for Wagon Train. Okay, so I love that. I love the way that you've twisted that and made me think differently. You work exclusively in the areas of culture, transformation, and change. So what will a culture that is built to flourish, what's that look like? I mean, what's the future look like, and what does that culture look like?
Great question. So let's start with some basics. You have to be good at what you do today. Mm-hmm. That doesn't change. So commitment and capacity and capability to do what you do today, that's the given. But that's just the baseline. When you think about beyond that, well, we need people who are curious. We need creativity. We need coachability and the ability to adapt to change. We also have to have, more than ever before, I believe, cultures that are courageous. And here's what I mean by that. Linus Pauling, one of the great minds around innovation historically in the world, said, it's much easier to tame a big idea than it is to grow a small one.
Oh, I love that.
And so really the courageous part is the willingness to step out and be bold, to go ahead and take some risks out there. And that's hard because while you're taking risks, you also have to execute. So it really, it's in some respects, it requires both being bold and innovative, but that can be the enemy of being good at what you do today.
Yes. It's balance.
And so being able to balance those two things, and that's what the culture has to be able to do. And oh, by the way, you have to be able to retain great talent.
Wow. That's a heavy load that's on our leaders' laps.
It's a big chore.
Are leaders taught, just out of curiosity, are leaders taught to get out there and be bold? I mean, are they being taught, coming out, young leaders, to go out and take those chances, be bold now?
I think if you speak to entrepreneurs, the answer is yes.
Yes.
So if I'm speaking with entrepreneurs and startups, and I work with some entrepreneurs and startups and small businesses, they are being bold. When I'm dealing with managers in legacy organizations, realize that a manager in a legacy organization has risen to the point where they are knowing how to play the game that's there. So the challenge for them is, how do I get out of that and how do I move beyond that? Not that they can't be bold, it's just that they have been promoted by being safe.
They get comfortable in the culture that they grew up in.
They're promoted by being safe.
The guts.
Right.
The guy had the guts and to get out there and make the changes necessary.
But that requires a change at the leadership too, because now we're talking about empowering entrepreneurs. And very often in organizations, empowerment looks like this. You're empowered, Betti, to do anything you want, just don't screw up.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I think everybody out there is nodding their heads
That's right
now. I believe that. So when you work with organizations, what are they missing about building a great culture? What do they miss? What did they just not hit the head on?
Another great question. So here's the thing. Culture, and I've been writing about culture and working in culture for a long time, and culture has been sort of hijacked. It's been hijacked to think that people to think that means ping pong tables and foosball tables and beanbag chairs. And I got to tell you, when I speak with and talk with and work with the young MBA students and young graduates and young people coming into the workforce today, it's not that they don't like those things, but that's really not that important. Given the opportunity, create the culture that allows people to do great work. And so don't let your culture be hijacked by this thing of, well, I've got to have beanbag chairs. I've got to have nap rooms. I've got to serve meals every day.
What they think is important.
Yeah, and if you can do that, great. I'm not saying don't do that, but don't think that that makes a great culture. That a place that has fun, that doesn't deliver results, that's not a company, that's a party.
Good point. Good point and good difference. Let's talk about change, because that's, besides culture, that's a big one that you talk about, that you're an expert on. Change is on everyone's mind, and it has been a very hot topic for a lot of years. I mean, you've heard it. Everybody's heard it. So why does change continue to be such a challenge for organizations today? Why? Can't we get it under control? Why does it continue?
Well, there's two pieces of that. First off, change historically has been one of the most requested topics for speakers and presenters for the last 20, 30 years. And when you think about how good we are, I mean, we've heard how many books, how many speeches, how many articles, our cheese has been moved, our iceberg has melted.
Our elephant's dancing.
All those. And here's the statistic that I think makes this important. About 20 years ago, John Cotter wrote that 70% of all change efforts fail to achieve their desired result.
70%?
Yeah, 70%.
Within organizations?
Within organizations, fail to achieve their 100% of their desired result. Now, 20 years later, with all that effort on change, the statistics still are about 70%. Depending on which study you read, it's 50 to 80. So let's go back to still right around 70%, still fail to achieve their desired result. And that's because we think that change is something to be managed. Change doesn't fail because of bad management. Change fails because of bad leadership.
Ooh, very good.
And then the second piece of that is the world is changing faster than it's ever changed. And it's only going to continue to speed up. I mean, when you think about it, we now live, Betti, in a world where a 90-second story on the evening news is called an in-depth analysis.
Yeah, that's true. That is so true.
So now the world is moving so much faster, and with all the technology changes that are coming down the road, it truly is going to be very soon, if you can think it, we can do it.
Wow. So you got to be really nimble, you got to be really frosty, you got to be on your feet.
And you've got to anticipate, you've got to stay ahead. So change it's got to move from something that we do in reaction to something to change is something that we do because it's the next thing.
And you've got your scouts out there looking at
You've got their scouts, you know.
I like that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that analogy. I love it. How can a leader, so let me ask you this, how can a leader who's doing their job, who's doing their darndest, build a sense of urgency plus a buy-in for change?
Let's deal with buy-in first, because there's two pieces of buy-in. First off, people support what they help create. Mm-hmm. And no one ever argues with their own ideas. So getting buy-in, that's a great way to get buy-in. But the urgency really is a critical piece. And so now let's look at why people change, why organizations change. Typically one of two reasons. Crisis pushes us to change, or opportunity pulls us to change.
Good point.
And most organizations, most people, wait until crisis before they do something. The problem is today is if you wait till crisis, you may never have the chance to recover. So what you have to have is a compelling enough opportunity that people go, I want to be a part of that. I want to go where that's going. I can't wait to go there. And that truly is hard. It takes a lot of hard work from a leader standpoint to build a vision and a compelling reason to change that causes people to pursue that opportunity.
That's so important also with your younger employees and your millennials in the workforce, right?
It is. One of the things that we're seeing about millennials is that they like to work for a cause.
Yes. Yes.
And so they will follow a leader with a cause. Another interesting statistic that I talked about in my book, Make Change Work, is a study that came out of McKinsey, and this is the challenge for leaders. 80% of what leaders talk about when describing the need to change doesn't really matter to 80% of the people listening.
Oh, wow. Not 80% of the people listening.
Right. So most of the things that leaders talk about when describing the need to change, it's important to them, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's important to those people that you need to change.
You got to be really tied in, really really aware of what's
And that's that
important.
connection. That's where it comes by people supporting what they help create and listening and getting others' ideas, and then being able to connect those dots between where you need to take the organization to go and where they want to achieve success.
That makes so much success. That makes so much sense. And I'm also sitting here thinking that's going to be tough on leadership. That's a challenge.
Command and control leadership doesn't work anymore.
That's right.
Not in the long term. Now, short term, it's good. The building's on fire. We're not going to say, let's bring an employee
Right.
group together
Right.
and talk about it. But if you're talking about long, sustainable growth and change in your business, it requires a completely different kind of leadership.
Okay, so I got another question. One of the fears that we hear from companies and even entire industries is that they will be disrupted in their daily activities and find themselves being irrelevant and even out of business. No one wants to be Uberized. But, if you will, how do you prevent that from happening? How do you prevent becoming Uberized?
Wow, that's a question that I get pretty often because everyone is afraid that someone's going to come and do what they did or what Uber did to taxis to them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many great examples. For example, Blockbuster Video.
Oh, yeah.
In 2008, the CEO of Blockbuster on an earnings call said, as for the competition, this was December of 2008, as for the competition, we're not worried. The Blockbuster brand is so strong. Now, the great thing about that was he said that 3 months after they had turned down the opportunity to buy a little upstart company that they could have bought for like $50 million. Maybe you've heard of that company. It's called Netflix.
That's right. That's right. Netflix threw them out, yeah.
And so there's two ways that you keep from being disrupted. One is that you don't allow yourself to remain complacent. The CEO of Netflix said his biggest fear was that Netflix couldn't make the jump from DVD to streaming. So you don't allow yourself to be complacent. Sears is a great example. Sears should have been Amazon.
This is true.
They
true.
you know,
Never thought of it that way.
In 1900, the mail was the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And Sears could have been Amazon because they had all those names, everything there, but they didn't because they became complacent. So one is to not allow yourself to become complacent because that's why you get disrupted. The second way people, though, get disrupted is when there's a catastrophic event.
They all come together.
Yeah, and so if there's a catastrophic, farmers, for example, understand what happens. You get disrupted when a tornado goes through and rips out your crops. Mm-hmm. So you have to have a contingency plan for the catastrophe as well. So that's the other way you keep from being disrupted.
Interesting. Well, one of the big changes and challenges that we hear about today is digital transformation. What are companies missing today in their quest to adapt to the digital world?
First off, the one thing that they're missing is digital transformation isn't new. When you think about it, from the very onset of personal computers or even mainframes in businesses, there's been a continuous look for 40, 50 years now?
Yes, that's true.
To use digital technology to change things. So technically, what we're calling the digital transformation is actually about the fourth wave of digital evolution. The first one was we use mainframe computers with punch cards. It's still digital. It's
right.
Now we're moving up to the first couple were how do you stay internal? How do we make ourselves more efficient? Then we moved to the next level, and the next level out was how do we move ourselves to have a stronger connection with our supply chain, with our partners. And now we're moving out to customers. And so the key thing to remember right now is it's not about the digital, it's about the transformation.
And that goes into the change, right?
Right. And so it's really about the digital is just the tool. Mm-hmm. Transformation is the goal. And a lot of times businesses hurt themselves when they try to make the tool the goal. So focus on the goal first, transformation first, and then think, what's the best tool? And it might be digital, it might be analog, it might be human relation, but if you think more about transformation than digital, then it seems to fall in place a little better.
Right. That makes so much sense. Do your homework first and really look at where you want to
and
go.
focus
and
on the transformation and what will it take. By the way, that fourth level of transformation is going to be how do you create relationships and interactions with customers? The folks at Gartner now tell us that 86% of buying decisions are based upon experience, not about your product or your price, but based on that experience. So how can you use digital to create a different experience with your customers?
I love that. Plus trust.
Plus trust, absolutely.
I just got finished doing a air conditioning, heating, big, huge expenditure. And I went with actually a company that charged me more, but I trusted them better. So I think that all fits right in there.
And digital, people go, I don't trust digital. Actually, we do trust digital. We trust it all the time. If you order things from Amazon, you trust digital.
No kidding, yes.
If you have a Starbucks app, you trust digital. If you use a GPS, you trust digital. And so there's really more things that we do trust about digital because it's consistent. Mm-hmm. And, we can take that variance out. And so you lose a little something when you go from people to digital, but you create other things. And one of those things you create is convenience and consistency.
That's right. And then the trust goes from there.
Trust goes from there.
So let me ask you a question. It seems that leadership is absolutely crucial for every type of organization that will flourish and thrive for the future. What will leadership look like in the organization of the future? What's it going to look like? We're planning.
I think it's going to look, Betti, like coaches who are helping people create an environment to succeed.
Interesting.
And again, there's a place for command and control, but we think the military is very much a command and control, and they do have structure, and that structure is very important. But there's a tremendous amount of leeway within that structure. The first lieutenant leading a unit has a great deal of authority to make choices. Mm-hmm. And even then, within the unit, they empower people to make choices. So I think leadership is going to be, one, transparent.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely critical, and that really hasn't changed. I know we're going to talk about later. Ross Perot was nice enough to endorse one of my books, and one of the things that Mr. Perot told me was that leadership, the principles of leadership will always remain the same. Because leadership is about influencing people, and people don't change very quickly.
It's true.
But what does change is how we go about that. So transparency, more coaching, more development, a commitment to helping people grow their career. Those are some things that we're going to see in how we do leadership. But the principles are still the same. It's still about trust. It's still about competence. It's still about being able to influence people.
That makes sense. Absolutely.
Good.
Okay, so everything we've talked about, oh my gosh, the average leader might be thinking, this is going to be a lot of work. I've got to maybe change my control and command tendencies to everything that Randy's been talking about. How long, in your opinion, does it take to build a culture that can flourish in the face of uncertainty and change? What's realistic expectations?
First off, when you're talking about building a culture, let's define what culture means. An organization's culture are its habits displayed over time.
That's true.
So we talk about Southwest Airlines as a great culture. We talk about them as a service culture. Well, they have built that habit into their organization. We talk about Southwest as an example of having fun at work. Well, they built the habit into having fun at work, and it starts with the interview.
This is true.
It starts, so, everything is around building that habit. And when you think about what does it take to build a habit, well, first off, in organizations, structure and process build habits. Also, who you hire builds habits. Who you fire builds habits. What you allow, what you give recognition to, what you don't allow. All those things go about building a habit. So what you're really asking is, how long does it take to change a habit?
This is true.
And,
I've heard 30 days.
Yeah, and we've all heard 21 to 30 days, right? You've heard that too.
This is true. That's what I heard.
And I brought that up because that's not true.
I didn't think it was.
Yeah, it's not true. First off, it depends on the habit.
Uh-huh.
So some years ago, for example, I read that eating dark chocolate was good for my heart, and it didn't take me 21 days to develop that habit.
Yeah, that's an easy habit.
It's an easy habit.
I'll go chocolate any day.
So in other words, habits that are in line with what we believe and what make us feel good, then those habits are really easy to put in place. And it doesn't take long at all. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking about the kind of transformational change that we're looking at here and what we're going to need from leaders, you should expect a year to two, maybe more, because we're not changing one person.
No, you change an entire organization.
We're changing an entire organization. Now, if your company is 8 people, that's like turning a small rowboat. If you're talking a company of 80,000 people, you're turning the Queen Mary.
That's right.
At that point.
Turning radius is going to take
so
longer.
Turning radius takes longer, and that's where the challenge comes in. But depending on where you are and how far you have to go, if you only have to go this far, it doesn't take long. If you have to go this far, a long time.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So I've got one more last question I want to ask you. How do you work with clients to help them deliver? How do you work with clients to help them deliver positive results in a world of accelerating change and uncertainty? How do you work with your clients? Give our listeners some idea.
Well, obviously I speak because we're doing this program for NSA. And speaking is a part of my business. But think about speaking, if a speech was all it took to really change behavior or to change an organization, then we would just bring everybody together for an hour, have a speech, maybe show them a video of a TED Talk and be done. So I do speak, obviously. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I think I try to do with my clients is help them implement ideas. So some of that is through leave behinds that we work with people to develop that are customized for them. I also consult. I have a number of clients that I work with for years in some cases, and I've got one that I've worked with for 17 years. And over that 17 years, we have totally transformed how they think about their business, and we continue to grow it to what's next. And where do we need to go next? Because the leadership in that business understand that they have to continue to evolve. So we're continuing to work that way. So I do that. I do some coaching. Sometimes you have an organization where the real problem is 1 or 2 leaders who can't get out of their own way.
That's true.
And so at that point, you don't need to bring everybody in. You really need to work with that one bozo leader who's...
Yeah. So you do that.
So it ranges. And I think about all those things are delivery systems. My writing is just a delivery system. Everything is built around the idea. And you start with the idea, and then you move out from there. And so we're looking at things right now that we're not launching yet, but we're looking at new ideas for how we continue to deliver those.
There's so much to this, and you are an absolute pro at this. You truly are.
Thank you.
So very quickly, I need you to hold up your books and tell me about your books. And we only have about 1 minute on that. So
yeah, all right. So this is On My Honor I Will. This is the book.
That's Ross
It was
Perot.
based on Mr. Perot wrote the cover blurb for, and it's based on the idea of how leaders build integrity into their business. So that one's that. This one is Results Rule, which is about, the subtitle is Build a Culture That Blows the Competition Away. This was actually one of the very first in the sort of second generation of organizational culture. This is one about the only culture you need is the one that delivers results. And this one is called Make Change Work. And it's staying nimble, relevant, and engaged in a world of constant change. This one is the basis for where I'm going next. It's sort of the launching point for the next book that I'll be hopefully launching next year. So.
I can't wait. Okay, so tell our audience how they can get in contact with you, because you are a wealth of information, and I know many people are going to want to reach out. So very quickly, how can they get in contact with you?
2 quick ways. One, on the internet at www.penningtongroup.com, Pennington Group, all one word, .com. You can call our office at 972-980-9857, or you can reach me on pretty much most social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Google Plus is going away, so we're not going to give that one anymore. But start with those major 3, or find me on YouTube. Any of those work.
Awesome. Okay, so Mr. Randy, I wish we had more time, but If you want to leave our audience with one thought for today, what's one thing you want them to carry with them? What is it?
The present should be guided more by the future than the past.
Say that one more time.
The present should be guided more by the future than the past.
I love that. Thank you. Thank
My
you
pleasure.
so much. Thank you for being, just thank you so much for being here today. And thank you, our audience, for being with us today. Remember, it's all about powering up to be better, to be faster, to be stronger, and to listen to Randy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to Power Up with NSA North Texas. To find out more about today's guest or NSA North Texas, visit www.speaker.org. To find out more about Power Up, visit our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/groups/NSA North Texas. And to find out more about Betti, visit www.betticoffeepresents.com.